You better be in the house when them street lights come on. Ain't that what your mama used to tell you? But I bet you when she told you to stay out the streets, she had no idea that the YouTube streets would take over the world. Uncle Juice, public figure Boogie, Baby Down So Raw, Detroit Gossip, and the most dangerous voice in Detroit, Dawgface TV.
Bitch, I talk more shit than Dawgface.
They running shit from coast to coast. Welcome to the Danger Zone.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Let's go.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. My name is Dawgface Calderon. This is real life unfiltered. This is a special episode. It's special, not necessarily because of the wonderful people who I have on the panel today. And we're expecting somebody else. Ruler Report is going to check in with us in a couple of minutes as well. This episode is not just special because of the special people that we have on the panel tonight. This episode is special and it is meaningful. It is eventful because of the subject matter. The subject matter is one Nolan Wells. The subject matter is about the preliminary independent autopsy report that was conducted in Washington, D.C. by a professional, a doctor by the name of Roger Mitchell. He has a 20-year history of working in the medical examiner field. He is a published author. He is a person who is known as a serious person in the world of forensic pathology. Tonight, I'm joined by I'm joined by my arch nemesis, the draconian female leader of doom. That girl Henny is in the building. How you doing, sis?
Oh, now I'm sis.
Yes, I gotta clean it up.
Yeah. What's popping, everybody, except Dawgface? Anyway, I'm good and well on this fine day, even though I'm here with you. It's always a pleasure to be here with Mr. Perkins, though.
Well, thank you so much.
Brown noser. And in the upper right-hand corner, it is none other than, right, than the legal genius himself, Todd Perkins Esquire.
Well, thanks for having me on tonight. I watch the show a lot, and it's
horrible.
Better. It's even better being on it sometimes, and what a lot of people don't see is the gear up to the show and how y'all go at each other. It's hilarious.
I don't even like her like that for real. I'm just saying.
I don't care. I don't care about you not liking, but I'm here though.
I only deal with this person because she's able to string together a coherent sentence every once and again.
You got me here because I'm cute and I make you look way better.
I'm gonna roll with that.
Hey, what can we do here? Listen, we started out with a lighthearted mood because the subject money is already flowing. Who does money come from? Money is already flowing. Who does money come from?
Hey, thank you, Gigi.
Oh no, we ain't gonna have this. Gigi the chosen. We ain't gonna have no shit. You ain't be sending no money already now. We ain't even started talking yet. She ain't even earned no money yet. What you doing? I'm confused.
I always earn it. Okay.
You haven't earned no money yet. Hey, listen, attorney extraordinaire Todd Perkins is in the building. That girl Henny, the subject matter is Nolan Wells. The independent preliminary autopsy was released today. It was a lot of hoopla made. It was a press conference by world-renowned civil rights, human rights attorney Benjamin Crump. We're going to examine what took place. We're going to examine what happened. If we need to, I have footage of the actual press conference. I don't know how detailed we want to go into what was said at the press conference. I have notes. If you want to go watch the press conference in total is on my page. You can just go to my page, go to my YouTube channel, and it is the Nolan Wells press conference. It was earlier today. It's on my YouTube channel. I don't know if we'll be able to play it all, but we're going to go over some of these details. We're going to talk about this because it needs to be talked about. There's a lot of
objection.
But you objection?
We are not watching that press conference.
Oh, don't start.
You are not about to punish me twice. Okay, I watched it in real time when it happened. You're not about to put me through that pain and stuff. I would rather hear Mr. Perkins read.
Was it that agonizing for you as it was?
I didn't see it.
As a commentator,
right?
You know, listening to what's being said is important,
right?
And I found myself doing that thing where you zone out, and I had to pull myself back in because it was a little hard to keep on task.
It was.
So yeah, no, please don't make us suffer through that again.
It was, and it is. So, Mr. Perkins, welcome to the show. It's a pleasure to have you back. It is always an honor to have somebody with your because I've been needing somebody to help me with this person. I've been needing somebody to help me with this person because sometimes this person just get on my nerves. So I've been
Henny, he's not gonna draw me into that. He's not. He's not gonna draw
I appreciate it because he be trying to draw people in on his side, but we know it's him.
So listen, so Nolan Wells is independent. Hey, we got some. Who got some money? Where that money come from? Hey, that money right there.
Thank you, Mama Zay.
No, who that money go to?
Moi.
No, you're gonna have to break bread. Mama say, you ain't gonna be sending no money, and you don't send no money for everybody. Thank you, Mama Zay. This is what it is. So listen, the autopsy is on the floor. We try to crack a few jokes just to make this whole thing bearable because it is a tragedy within and of itself. Henny, before we even get into all the documents, let's talk about the press conference today. So there are takeaways. And I have my notes. There are takeaways.
I do too. You was taking notes. I am so shocked. I got my notes too in my iPad. I do.
I am a well-studied podcaster.
Yeah, I got a fancy pen.
You know I got a pen. I'm on that. You know I got a pen. I'm on that. So listen, Henny, what are your major takeaways? Let's talk about the major takeaways. Mr. Perkins didn't have the opportunity to watch the press conference. Do you want to go first, or do you want to trade? Can you want to name one thing that was a major takeaway, and I'll name one. What do you want to do? How you want to start?
We could do the one main takeaway, and I mean, I don't really want to talk about the obvious, right? Which would be the bones in the throat,
right? Okay,
so that's the huge obvious takeaway from this that it's missing, right?
Let's start at the beginning though, Henny. The whole thing is in the independent autopsy, right? There were things missing from the body. There were things missing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the glaring things that was missing. There was a physical thing that was missing, right? And that was the structure of the throat, the larynx, the larynx, the voice box, the entire throat region was missing.
Okay, I thought you was gonna be studious and name all of them. That's okay. All right, you did a good job.
So it's the larynx, the voice box, the entire throat region of his body was missing. Why is that? Wait.
It's important to note that it's the structure, not the neck itself. It's the internal structure that's missing.
Structure of the neck area, the entire neck area, and it wasn't missing. They just didn't ship from the medical examiner in Mississippi to Washington, D.C. So Dr. Mitchell and his staff never received it. Why is that important? That was one of the main takeaways, because that was one of the main things that raised eyebrows across the world as people were listening to this press conference. Why is it important, Henny, to this investigation? Why can't we just say, oh, they didn't send it, so what, no big deal?
So my understanding, and Mr. Perkins, correct me if I'm wrong, that structure, there are bones in the neck that are important for you to examine to rule out strangulation. It's also a part of the structure that deals with, I don't know if the bones don't really deal with breathing or whatnot, but that structure being gone, it's a missing piece to the puzzle because you can't rule out. Even though they say that there's no deep tissue injuries to the neck itself, you still can't rule out strangulation without it. Am I correct, Mr. Perkins?
Well, you don't have that. Like you said, you were going down the right pathway. I mean, how are you going to be able to determine whether there's bruising in that bone structure to determine whether or not somebody restricted his breathing, or there's a lot of, every piece of the body tells a different part of the story. And, to not have that, and from my understanding in looking at this report, that's not something that's, he's unable to draw a conclusion or making give even a hypothesis about that, but it's not uncommon for that to have been taken out. But and you like we were talking about earlier, it's the organs are removed from the body, weighed, and all of those things during the first stage or the first autopsy. In this situation, usually in most situations, it's just one. This is a situation in which a second opinion's been sought, and I applaud the people who are bringing light to this situation to find out. We're really trying to find out what happened. That's all. Rather than feeling like another Black life is just not worthy of investigation.
So let me say this before I turn you loose, Henny. So listen. So the reason why, I think the reasons why are important here before we even get into all the minutia, right? The reasons why an independent autopsy was sought, it is solely and explicitly because of the history of the state of Mississippi. No matter who was in office, the state of Mississippi has a unique characteristic when it comes to investigating the murders of Black people. And not just local law enforcement have been called into question in terms of the way they conduct investigations, but all the way up the chain from the medical examiner to the local police authority to the state to everything has been called into question. The reason why these parents sought out an independent autopsy is because they did not believe they were going to get a fair, honest assessment of what took place leading up to their son's demise. That's
and
why.
You know why, right? You know what gave them the ick?
Well, the ick is so. We can get into Tracy Turner's.
Oh, no, it ain't even just that. What gave them the ick was the statements from the sheriff on the onset saying there was no foul play. Mind you, there hasn't been any medical examination. His body's on the beach, and you saying there's no, I don't know where the body was when he said it. I just said that. Okay, so don't run with it and say Henny said. But on the on-site of the body, you're just saying there's no foul play. It looks like a drowning. Well, there's been no investigation into it. So the family is like, wait a minute, hold on. You're not about to do us like this. And that's part of going into what you said, the history of how cases that involve Black people in Mississippi, this is how it gets handled.
Yeah, so the thing
they were just it gave that feeling of they were just sweeping this under the rug.
It gave
exactly.
Not only that, it gives people, particularly maybe the parents, but also the general public, the perception that they're there to protect other young people from being the scrutiny of a criminal investigation, of a grand jury investigation. And then when they start asking questions, it comes up with conflicting stories. And again, I know this much, not having poured into it, but just having watched some news accounts, because it's clear. I mean, these things, and here, we're not saying that anything nefarious or illegal happened to Mr. Wells at this point, but he deserves more than just being pushed under the rug. That's it.
Right. So I made this statement. I was interviewed on iHeartRadio Atlanta. Shout out to Brianna, Al. Shout out to the people who kind of like I was at iHeartRadio Atlanta the other day. They asked me about this subject, and I said this, and I said this on Vlad TV as well. when black people in particular, when we judge issues, when we judge matters where you have a collision between white people and black people, and that collision, whether it leads to somebody dying or somebody being prosecuted, right? So this country has taught us a very important lesson. I don't care if it's Mississippi or Alaska. This country has taught us a very important lesson about how there's a divide between how black people are handled and how the cases involving black people are treated versus non-black people. That's one. Number two, an independent autopsy was sought after because the parents, and I think they would have done one anyway, even if the sheriff wouldn't have said what he said. But certainly,
I agree.
When the sheriff said, "Hey, don't foul play here," how could you know that on day 2 when you haven't interviewed anybody, you haven't done any real research or any real investigation in terms of trying to determine what took place? How do you even know? The story is still unfolding. How do you even know that? So once he said that, now listen, within and of itself, that would have been alarming. But because it's Mississippi and because
high alert
history, that is a sign that shit is finna go south for the niggas real fast. That's a sign. He said it. I wish he had that to take back. I know he wishes he could have took that back. But that is what
not.
But
now that the scrutiny of the rest of the world is on him, now that the scrutiny of all the eyes, if nothing else, the black eyes are on him throughout the country. I think he does now. I think he would have held his tongue a little bit and say, "Let me do a little bit of work before I can tell them, and give you some, just a bald allegation or a speculative statement." Because there had been no work, no investigative work. I saw one of your one of the people who have placed a comment in the chat. They said this happened within an hour after discovering his body. So that's troubling. That someone who's supposed to be a law enforcement professional, many years in law enforcement, and he would come out and say something like that. Clearly, if that comment is correct, and you found the body, and within an hour you're making this statement to the press, then that's bush league, as some might say.
Right. So listen, I'm gonna prefix it, then I'm gonna let Henny go to work because Henny ready to work. So listen. So the question is a drowning. Why are we saying why is a drowning as a cause of death on the table? Why? The reason why that is because his body was found face down on a beach on Horn Island. Mm-hmm. So the initial thought process is, oh, he drowned, right? But there's a segment of the society who doesn't believe that happened based on a couple of other circumstances that took place that threw all his death into suspicion. And that's why we are where we are right now. So people are trying to act like that black people as a whole, we have arrived at these conclusions minus any real substantive facts or conclusions or information that would make us lead this. To those people who think that black people in America have arrived at the conclusion that something's not right in Mississippi, I want to tell you to shut your bitch ass up. Because, bitch, black people, we don't just judge situations according to the facts. We judge, we utilize the facts, but we also factor in historical activity. We also factor in history, especially in places that have been known to be not so very friendly to people who look like us. So we're not just grabbing this shit out the sky and saying, hey, this is a matter of race. We have examined where it is, right?
Right.
And we've examined what the law enforcement officer said. Had he not said that, then he would have had a little bit more room. And even though it was Mississippi and black folk were still up, that's Mississippi now.
I don't think so. I don't think he would have got any wiggle room. Okay, let me just speak for myself. He wouldn't have got no wiggle room.
No, I speak for
because me, just like any other person, any other black person in America, the minute we saw that photograph of Nolan sitting on the back of a boat with 3 white friends, instantaneously everybody thought they did something to him. That's the first thing that comes to mind because that's how it usually plays out. History has taught us that this is what happens. What I don't like is how when we come to that conclusion, it's you're racist. Y'all are always trying to turn something and make it about race. It's always about race.
Black people cannot be racist. Black people cannot be racist. It's impossible because we don't own any infrastructure. We own no financial infrastructure. We own no media infrastructure. Racism is the ability to cause undue amount of stress and negativity to a section of the population. We don't have that ability to do that. Now we can be bigoted, we can be biased, and we can be prejudiced. You know, we can be all of those things, but we cannot be racist if we apply the sociological definition of racism.
But see, that's why I said it's always about race. The way this country was built, it was built on racist ideologies. The way the laws run, it was built on racism, because the laws were built and structured to keep us as slaves. Because the only way that once the slaves were quote unquote free, they can continue to have slaves was to imprison us. So of course, there's laws that are on the books that are ridiculous, that if they applied to today, you would be surprised how you could be arrested and end up in prison. So at the end of the day, you know, this was the onset of it. So whether Sheriff John Ledbetter came out and said, you know, I don't see any signs of foul play, whether he said it or not, we were already going to go there. We already were not going to trust him. This is good old boy country. We know about those states in the South where the good old boys reign supreme, and Mississippi is one of them. So we already were not going to be okay with whatever he said, whether he didn't say that or not. So I have to disagree. We wouldn't have gave him no wiggle room. We still would have been side-eyeing and we would have been calling him out.
So listen, you know, I am a conspiracy theorist to no end, right? So, you know, I'm going to label some shit. If I get any, I'm like the white man. If I get any room to label your ass something, I'm labeling you whatever I can, right? So here's the whole thing. You're right about that. And I'm not going to disagree with you. I'm not even going to push back. Or maybe just a little bit.
Of course.
He put a spotlight on himself that he can blame nobody else for. Because before an investigation could have even been began, he made a blanket statement about what it was it wasn't before collecting any serviceable data or information about what supposedly took place. You don't know that to be able to say that.
The newspaper, the Sun Herald, their local newspaper, interviewed one of Nolan's friends on the beach. That interview, the media interviewed somebody who was on that island before the sheriff had. And you're making that statement.
Say that again now. Can you come full circle? Say.
So the newspaper down there, the local newspaper, interviewed Nolan's best friend, Javon, who was on the island that day. They interviewed him before the sheriff had even talked to him. Yet the sheriff was coming out making this ruling of, I don't see any signs of foul play. So you're making this assumption, and you hadn't even talked to anybody who was there on scene to see who was there that could give you an answer. Yet the newspaper was talking to them, and you was down there too. But you make that statement loosely, irresponsibly.
Do you understand that people who make decisions like that, they can lose their jobs? Like, say, for instance, if I'm a scientist and I come out and I say something like that, I mean, in academia, you know, those people will lose all sense of credibility in their circles of expertise and in their professional worlds. There's no reason why that shouldn't happen to him. Whether he was right or wrong, it's clear that an investigation had never taken place before he made this representation of a drowning. Period. That's empirical. That's objectively true. And for him to have done that, it demonstrates and it shows. It's almost like a tell. You know, like, you know, when you're playing cards and you got a tell, he's almost telling you, you know, that's his tell. He didn't care. You know, you can draw that conclusion, and I think that conclusion can be drawn that he didn't care, or that he wasn't going to perform the investigation that's being performed now, and that's why they had to ship that boy's body somewhere else to give him the attention that he and his family deserve.
Exactly.
Okay, so listen. So we're talking about a drowning because he was found face down on the sandbanks of Horn Island, which is off the coast of the Gulf of Mexico. Right. Off the Mississippi coastline, right? That's what we talked about drowning. So the initial reports are that he was a victim. He drowned. He suffered.
But why not come out and say it's our initial impression that it is a possible drowning, rather than definitively saying it was a drowning? Words matter, especially in our world. Words matter significantly, and he didn't hedge his bets on that. He just said what he said. And I'm making these representations based upon what I've read very briefly, but it's not much to know about what he said, because this is what happened within the first hour of finding the young man. And so, he did that. He can't walk that back. Now he could walk it back with an apology, but sometimes these folks don't want to get no apologies, particularly for Black lives.
Gotcha. Dante Moore, thank you for is that my money, your money, Henny?
That's your money.
That's what I thought. Don't try to steal it neither. I don't trust you.
I don't need to steal.
Whatever. You always
brother Atkin, the exact quote was, he sees no signs of foul play. That's the quote. Now, y'all should know I'm going to know the quote, because I try to hang on to words. Like you said, words matter. So when people start saying stuff and they skip things in a statement, I'll be like, whoa. You only listen to one part. Here's the other part. So there's a lot of moving parts with this case. And one of those components is the social media aspect of it. You've got a lot of narratives, a lot of people jumping on any and every little thing, which makes it a little hard for you to follow what's fact and what's not when you start jumping down the rabbit hole of this case. And then, not to mention, we've also been taught to distrust legacy media. Okay, we know legacy media is easily influenced to spin a story and a narrative however they are influenced to do so. So getting the facts to this story, it takes a little bit of busting your brain to think about something, to evaluate it before coming out and saying something, speaking it. And that's not happening. But regardless to all of that, I mentioned it because with those statements that he made, it fanned the flames.
Yeah.
And now it's carrying over into social. Right. Yeah. Exactly. So now it's to a point where people don't even want to hear there's a possibility of drowning. They don't want to hear it. They don't care how scientific you get, how logical you get, what evidence you pull, what evidence you present. They don't want to hear it. The parents don't want to hear it. For real, they don't want to hear it, because nobody wants to hear your child drown. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to bury their child, period. So the parents are fixed on he didn't drown because he was an avid swimmer.
Right. But
go ahead.
You that part at the end where you said that he's also an avid swimmer, but you also mentioned, and I was unaware of this, that there was a storm that had taken place in between the time of him being found, which could affect the way that he was found, face down. But what happened is they laid the seeds of doubt by him coming out and doing. We're going to go back and over that. That's going to be the recurring song. That's going to be the reverb through and throughout. That's going to lead us to draw this possible conclusion and leave us unsettled in our spirit and in our souls about what happened to this young man, because somebody comes out without any investigation and makes this statement. And but Mississippi did it to himself, like Dawgface said. This is something that has been going on in the state of Mississippi, in a lot of parts of America. Let's be real, but particularly in the state of Mississippi, this has been going on. It's just like that perception that we have being up. I'm from the north, never been to Mississippi, but we have this perception of what Mississippi and even Alabama. I know Alabama say, "Why Perkins throw me in this?" But nonetheless, those are states that have historically refused to open themselves up to an equal society in which Black people had equal footing. Now, today, people say, well, they have opportunity today. I'm talking about historically. They created this, which allows us to go there.
And that is important. That is important, Mr. Perkins, because
absolutely.
Listen, I'm going to say this. Hey, listen, white America. So let's talk about Black fatigue, because Black fatigue is all over this situation. So the term Black fatigue has been commandeered by white people who feel like that whenever something happens in this country to black people where there's a matter of race, that we always point to racism as to the reason why something did or didn't happen when it comes to systematic, when it comes to anything, right? So white people have commandeered that term and they have taken it and they have ingested it and they are spewing it out and they're using it as a weapon. Like black fatigue by white people saying, oh, you're playing the race card. Hey, listen.
Hold on. They didn't commandeer, they stole it.
That's what commandeer means.
I will say it in plain English. They stole it.
I'm trying to be a little bit articulate. Let me.
No, because they always isn't thieving ignorant. So let's get ignorant. They stole it.
I'm trying to use some big words. I'm trying to make
now
that I am smart.
That's questionable.
Don't say it like that. Now don't say it like that because now you sound like Fredo. Remember, he was like, "I'm smart." I
can do stuff too. You don't try to do me. Yes. Listen.
It's great talking. Being able to laugh about something that's very difficult.
Yeah.
Sharing. But I mean, and it takes that kind of break because the air gets thick. You know what I'm saying? My room right here, I got air conditioning on and everything. But talking about this shit gets hot. You know what I mean? And you think about it. You know what really is just? It's just another promising life that's been lost. That's what we're not talking. That's what a lot of people are not talking about. Rather than coming out with what happened and because here's the thing. Look, let's talk about it from a legal perspective. What should happen? If there's enough doubt and the seeds of doubt have been sown already, and my understanding is that there are conflicting stories in what some people say. If I'm the local prosecutor or the state prosecutor, I'm going to convene a grand jury to do an investigation. And all the time, every time when we hear about grand juries, there's not always when you convene a grand jury that is ultimately charges that come out of it. But what it does is it gives some integrity to something that has lost integrity at the very inception. And so in order to restore ourselves and give these people some proper closure, then do a proper investigation. And and you could blame it on the sheriff. Had the sheriff started out and said, look, we don't know what happened. We found him in this condition. Do the objective things, like the things that we definitely know. When you see him, you saw him face down. You see him, was he clothed or unclothed? When you see him and those things, the things that any ordinary person with eyes and a mouth can say, rather than saying how he drowned. You ain't seen this boy no one's seen this boy in 2 days, this young man in 2 days. So how do we know what he did in less than an hour?
Hey, listen, 704 Chino, thank you for the donation. Papa need brand new shoes and a sweatshirt.
So let me answer this question really quickly. There's someone asking who invented black fatigue. Mary Frances Winters.
Yes,
who invented a black woman, a black author who wrote a book entitled Black Fatigue. And the original definition of black fatigue, it talks about the deeply embedded psychological effects and physical exhaustion of day-to-day stressful living as a black person, systemic racism, the microaggressions, and intergenerational trauma that we deal with as a people navigating through America. So that's where it originated from. Black fatigue is ours. That is what we are. That is what we become with these stories time and time again, seeing the same thing over and over. It's insanity. It's insanity.
Can I break it down for you?
You want to go ahead.
So black fatigue means that, hey, listen, as a people, as black people are tired of having to explain to you white people that y'all acting incredulous, like y'all can't fucking believe what we're saying. We're saying black people are tired of having to explain to white people the nuances of how you being fucking racist and how you displaying racist motherfucking behavior and activity.
I thought you was being educated.
Well, he's floating back and forth. You know what I'm saying?
Going back and forth. You know, I'm going back and forth with this shit. You know,
Go ahead, finish breaking it down. Come on, give it to the people.
Black fatigue is ours. Black fatigue is, hey, listen, because white people in this country, you think black people don't know history. You literally have white people in this country who don't know a goddamn thing about Jim Crow segregation, about slavery.
Talk about it.
Hold on. That's intentional. That's intentional. Yeah. They trying to get rid of that. They want to have a world. Some people envision a world where they want to romanticize. I can see 50 years from now, if they continue in this direction, they want to romanticize what slavery was and want to make it almost like indentured servitude. They want to make sure that there was a loving relationship between the owner of. They're going to take away the word slave and they're going to change it and put on some dressing over the employer.
It was their employer.
Oh yeah, and they're gonna take away all the atrocities. Like they like to burn books, and like down in Florida, they don't want to talk about 14 the 15th century on up, and then they don't want to talk about those things. When in fact you become stronger as a people having acknowledged your past. Because if you don't acknowledge your past and you want to forget your past, you're bound to repeat it in the future.
That part.
And so look what's happening now. I mean, it's the greatest disparity of wealth that we've seen, and and it starts there. But then, from a sociological perspective, we are separating. But hopefully, the young people will continue to bridge that gap.
Hey, listen. So, the first thing that somebody white says is, "I didn't own you. It was our fault." Blah blah blah. And then the first thing they say, "Hey," and then the second thing they say is, your people sold, because now they don't listen. Your people sold you into. So listen. So it is true that some segments of the African population did trade slaves for guns and for whatever. It is absolutely true, right? So that is horrible within and of itself. But when you factor in the treatment that Europeans, but white people who migrated from all over the planet, really ain't migrated nowhere. When you factor in the treatment that black Africans suffered under the hands or under the foot of white people in America at the beginning of this country, right? When you look at the behavior, so what if? So you were sold by your own people? Yeah, that's the first thing a white supremacist will say. A white apologist will say, "Hey, your people sold you. We didn't go in there. They sold you." Yeah, that might be true. But look at the treatment that you guys exhibited. Look at the treatment. Look at what you did when you.
But hold on, let's go even closer in time than that. What about the redlining that took place in earlier times, in the earlier part of the 20th century, that it gave the opportunity for people who, let's say, an equally positioned white person and an equally positioned black person who are working in the factories, yet this white person lives in an area that's not redlined, and therefore they can get a loan and they can buy a home. And that home, people recognize a home is the greatest sense of wealth or value that a person can have and pass on to their progeny or to their children. And that didn't happen in black households because they continued to be renters and they continued to be not property owners. And that disparity continues the gap. It's almost like if you're running a 100-yard dash, I don't care how fast you are. If you give a guy 20 yards, a 20-yard lead, you'll never catch up. And all you want is an opportunity. And you know something? Here's another thing. I truly believe, and I know we're getting a far foot from this, but I think the conversation has to happen. I truly believe when we talk about civil rights was an economic play in this America because, we had black enclaves and a lot of black people doing well, even though they weren't integrated into white society. We were doing well economically. We were cohesive as a people. We had family structure and all of those things. And we had our own economy. Remember, the story about Cadillac. Cadillac was going to be broke. And then during the Depression, because black people couldn't keep their money in banks, they had their money. And all the white people lost their money because of the Depression and the foreclosures on the banks and the run on the money from the banks. So when they opened it up and allowed black people to buy Cadillacs, they saved that company because we had cash. And, but again, when we lose sense of who we are and what we are as a people, as a family, then they can take advantage of us. But that civil rights don't get me wrong. I'm not saying I'm against civil rights by any stretch, even though, our current administration is trying to do its best to eradicate it and remove all kind of DEI. But again, this is something, we're talking about something different, but as you talk about it more and more, they all interplay with how we perceive this young man's death. Had this young man had died up in Orchard Lake, it would have been a different impression. Even though I'm not a fan of Sheriff Bouchard, I suspect Sheriff Bouchard would not have come out within an hour and said this young man died from drowning, unless he had the information. That's just it. But Mississippi, there are countless lives that have been lost, Black lives that have been lost, and no one said a word or did anything. And so I applaud. A lot of people are going to be critical of Ben Crump. A lot of people are going to be critical of all the people and the Black people who are supporting this endeavor. And they may make mistakes and missteps and things like that. But I applaud them for making a difference. I applaud them for saying, I care about this kid enough that I'm going to get involved. And I don't think anybody's really pandering for the audience, even though I think Henny, you said Crump is being moved by social media. He may, and that may happen. But again, the conversation's happening. And a show like y'all got, where you got millions of viewers, and and we're talking about it. These are the exact. It's a success in my mind, even though from something that is so sad and a loss that is so great. This is a success out of that devastation because we're talking about this young man, and we're not going to let him rest until we find out what happened to him.
Henny, let's get into the actual details. Do you want to read from the autopsy report?
Sure.
I know you can read.
Yes, I'm college educated. Thank you. I graduated with 2 degrees.
You ain't gonna be like Mr. Crump.
Y'all terrible. Y'all beating that man up.
Yes, because goddamn it, you should have had somebody. So listen. So let's get the first things first. Before we even get into the autopsy, the independent autopsy report. This is a criticism. This is an open-ended criticism of Benjamin Trump. Hey, listen,
Crump.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Sorry. Boy. Oh, that was cold, man.
That was terrible.
Sorry.
That was terrible.
So listen, Mr. Crump. If you know that reading aloud is not your strong suit, in a matter of such great importance as this, when you know that every word counts, when you know that people are hanging on every syllable, every noun, pronoun, adjective, why, first of all, the medical examiner, Dr. Roger Mitchell, wasn't available to come to the press conference, so he wasn't available to read his own report. Was there nobody else in his office who he would have entrusted to coming in and reading that report for us and answering questions post reading of the examiner's report? Why did Ben Crump have to do it, Henny?
Or why not wait until Dr. Mitchell's available? I mean, it could have been done tomorrow. This was released, I think, on the 19th. And, was it, I agree with you on that. I typically when I'm in a situation and I have media, if it's beyond the legal, I want the other experts who are going to talk, unless they fully brief me on what I'm saying.
Well.
Here we go. Well, 40. Go.
He could have had somebody else read this autopsy because he did not do a justice. I agree. He could have held off on this because there was nothing that was really useful or pertinent that was coming out. All this did was create more social media frenzy. Okay, and more misinformation because people have a lack of understanding what's going on, or they just want to be salacious. I feel like him failing to do so really did this a disjustice and a disservice. Now, I am very critical of Ben Crump, and my reasons are because you are a person who is in a position of authority. You are a person who has a history. You are a person who is supposed to be a point that people come to. Your strong points are not reading documents. Your strong points are speaking. not reading documents. Stick to your strong points, okay? But when you speak, also make sure you speaking correct, because giving out misinformation has happened already in this case. So I think, Mr. Crump, maybe you've taken on too much.
Wait a
Maybe
minute.
you need a day or two to rest.
Breaking news alert. Breaking news alert.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news alert.
Uh-oh.
Breaking news alert. On the Justice for Nolan Wells Instagram page.
Why are you on there?
Hey,
You're not on that page.
For Nolan Wells' second autopsy. So Nolan.
when the young brother, I think his name was Javon, was being interviewed, when they asked him, hey, did
$100,000 reward is now being.
When the young brother, I think his name was Javon, was being interviewed, when they asked him, hey, wow.
What'd you find?
On the Justice for Nolan Wells
He's
Instagram
posted on the Justice for Nolan Wells Instagram.
They posted my clip from my interview with 96.1 Hip Hop interview that I did where I spoke on the Nolan Wells situation, and they posted this clip in the story. They posted this clip in the story.
Well, congratulations to you. You're like mold. You're just everywhere.
When the young brother, I think his name was Javon, was being interviewed, when they asked him, hey, did the police talk to you?
The witness.
He's like, oh, no.
He said no.
Yeah, there you go.
Did any investigators ever speak to you about what you saw that?
You cold, Henny.
Hey, here you go, right. So this is the clip that's on the Justice for Nolan Wells page. When the young brother, I think his name was Javon, was being interviewed, when they asked him, hey, did the police talk to you? He's like, oh, no.
He said no.
No.
Did any investigators ever speak to you about what you saw that day?
No, sir.
Really? Okay.
Cops have not talked to you yet.
No, sir.
That's odd.
I don't see why the cops would have to talk to me.
This is a young man who's 17, 18 years old who doesn't understand why interviewing him would have been one of the first things they did. That right there is telling. And it is indicative of Black people not understanding how vital they are and how vital we are in terms of protecting ourselves. Why would they interview me? Young man, you're a material witness because you were there. You knew him. You knew all the boys involved. You were there on the island that day. You heard the argument. You are a primary witness.
Yeah. And the kid was just so nonchalant, like, no, why would they want to talk to me? You're his best friend. You lived there. You were around when this happened. You should have been one of the first phone calls they made outside of the group he was with on the boat. And when the cop, I should say the sheriff said, well, I don't think there's any foul play. And I'm like, really? You don't think there's any foul play after like 4 or 5 days?
Right.
You already have ruled out foul play. I'm just like, just the initial evidence where you had a group of people that went out on a boat for a weekend, and one of them didn't come back, but yet, and then we had to go and search down the phone, but yet you don't think there's any foul play with that.
When the young brother, I think
That part.
Henny, where you at?
I had to go off screen now. Leave me alone. I got sciatica issues going on. I had to readjust myself. Don't nobody want to see me wiggling around on the camera.
So did you see that they featured my
I saw.
You see that?
I see you.
I did watch that. I watched that early.
I said you everywhere like mold. Congratulations. Yeah.
It's just impossible for you.
Well, no, yes. Congratulations for making it to their page. That's big. That's big. That's very big.
So let's get into the details. Hey, listen, why are we saying it was a drowning? Because he was found on the shore, on the bank of a river bed of an island, of Horn Island, face down. So the initial thing, reports are he drowned. So let's get into the autopsy report now. Let's get into the medical examiner's report, Henny, and if you will, here it is. I'm sharing it. It should be on the screen now.
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to follow you as best as I possibly can as you read through it. Now, where you want to start at?
Scroll up. We can start right here. Okay, so this is the preliminary report for the death of Nolan Xavier Wells. The date on this is July 19th, 2026. It says the cause of death. This is their second autopsy, and the cause of death is undetermined, and the manner of death is undetermined, both pending in investigation. So they go into giving us his particulars, and telling us the second autopsy date was July 10th. Okay, the date of death is unknown, as they said. Now, on here, we get into the preliminary findings. So what they talk about is the focal area of the red discoloration in the soft tissue in the back of the head, which is the occipital. Excuse me.
No, I have you, sister. Occipital.
I'm gonna be nice. Thank you.
Okay,
I appreciate it. Region,
no,
which is back here in the back of the head. And they said that it is unknown. All right. They said the body was received after the initial autopsy with marked decomposition. The coronal incision of the scalp, which is where they made an incision in his head. And the reason for the incision was so that the brain could be removed. Why would they remove a brain? To weigh it, to inspect it, to examine it. That's why the brain was taken out. A Y-shaped incision on the arterial torso. The reason that is there is for the organs to be removed. However, and this is the part that everybody keeps missing, it says accompanying the body in the body cavity. So the organs were removed on the initial autopsy, but were shipped inside the body. So Mr. Perkins had educated us earlier and told us that when they put the organs in the body, they don't put them back where they were. They just put them inside of the body. Okay. And then it says the anterior internal neck structures are absent and were not received with the body. So what did we learn just then? That is the only thing missing. Scroll back up for a second. Not too far, right there. Now it says the additional procedures that were performed during the second autopsy was a bilateral facial dissection. What we learned reading this was that there was a dissecting of his body, right? So it says that there was no fractures and no evidence of deep tissue injury. I believe, what part of the body was that? Scroll back. The face, okay? So the face had no fractures and there was no evidence of deep tissue injury. Posterior head dissection, focal area of the red discoloration in the soft tissue in the back of the head. There was no fractures. Okay. So there's no fractures there. Posterior neck dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Rib exposure dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. Pelvic dissection, no fractures, no evidence of deep tissue injury. So, subcutaneous and deep soft tissue dissection of the back, buttocks, arms, and legs. No evidence of deep tissue injury. Okay, removal of healed scars on the left ankle. The histology was submitted and no toxicology was performed. All right, so we have no bruising on the body at all right now. Now, this forensic pathologist identified several limitations during the second autopsy that created barriers to establish a definitive cause and manner of death for Nolan Xavier Wells. The second autopsy performed on Nolan Wells revealed marked decompositional changes, meaning the body went through stages of decomposition. Marked decomposition can obscure the presence or absence of bruising on the skin surface, especially during a second autopsy examination. For these reasons, additional dissection procedures not performed during the first autopsy examination were performed to rule out potential blunt force injuries responsible for the death. The procedure included facial dissections, posterior head and neck dissections of the rib, the pelvic dissection, and subcutaneous and deep tissue dissection of the back, buttocks, arms, and legs. There were no fractures or deep tissue injuries found. So they went through his body from head to toe and dissected it, going through to see if there was any bruising, any broken bones, any fractures. There were none. So his body was not beaten, you guys. It was not beaten.
And hence, people want to know, well, why was there a closed casket? This would explain because they carved his body up looking for clues as to cause of death. And they carved him up respectfully in such a way to where it made it impossible for them to reconstruct him so that it could be an open casket situation.
That's correct. And it's a shame that a family had to go through having the body inspected to this magnitude and degree. Like, I couldn't imagine having to give the okay for you to dissect my child just because I need to get to the root of what happened to them. But yes, I agree with you. That is why the casket was closed. So we could close all the mystery on there was no body in there, conspiracy theories. Anyway, no, go back. Right there. All right. So it says, however, dissection of the back of the head during the layered posterior neck dissection revealed a 12 by 8 inch focal area of red discoloration in the deep tissue overlaying the say it again. Occipital?
Occipital, yes.
Okay, bone. The etiology of this finding is unclear. There are no lacerations of the overlaying skin, nor fractures of the underlaying skull. There are no fractures to the skull and no lacerations on the skin where this marking is. All right. These findings are inconclusive for perimortal injury due to both the extensive decomposition and the absence of associated injuries. The finding, however, is significant enough to be highlighted in this preliminary report for further investigation. It is important to reiterate that this finding could not have been observed in the first autopsy because the posterior head and neck dissections were not performed. So the first autopsy wouldn't have picked up on this because they didn't even bother to do any dissections of the body. Okay. Another limitation faced by the forensic pathologist was the absence of the anterior internal neck structure, the tracheal, the say that word. Laryngeal?
Yes.
Laryngeal. Okay. Laryngeal.
Laryngeal.
Okay. See, we learning words today.
Right.
All right. We not in the medical field, but we learning, doggy. We learning. The thyroid bone and the hyoid bone were not received with the body. It is assumed that the pathologist retained these structures for additional evaluation. The retention of the anterior neck structure during an initial autopsy is a common forensic pathology practice. Nevertheless, a posterior neck dissection performed without review of the anterior neck structure is incomplete. Therefore, the pathologist cannot rule out injury to the neck or as a contributor to the neck as a contributor or cause of death. All right. So they can't rule out that he didn't die because of him being, I'm paraphrasing. They can't rule out strangulation, y'all, because they ain't got all the bones. Even though it says that there was no bruising around the neck, it don't matter. He could have got a chop to the throat and it could have, not to be graphic, but I'm just saying. Sorry, y'all. Because the internal autopsy rightfully removed and dissected each organ. I'm going to say that again. Because the initial autopsy rightfully removed and dissected each organ, there are additional limitations inherent in the second autopsy of Nolan Wells. The most significant of the limitations was the inability to directly observe the airways and the lungs for water and directly observe the stomach for gastric contents. In addition, the original toxicology results had not been received at the time of this report. So because of the initial, and Mr. Perkins, correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm reading and interpreting this wrong, but I interpret this to mean that because of the initial autopsy, we can't tell if there was water in his lungs or airway, and we don't know what the contents of his stomach was, more than likely because when they did their examination of the lungs and the airway, when they went to dissect it and open it up to examine it, the water would not be there for the second autopsy, and the contents of his stomach would not be there for the second autopsy. Mississippi knows if there was water in his lungs, water in his stomach, or what the contents of his stomach was. Am I correct?
Well, you are correct in one respect. But remember, also, we already talked about the fact that the organs are removed in ways. So they've been, anytime you move something, it becomes unsettled and it's not in its original condition, obviously. So what I think, to get the full, breadth of what this means, you're going to also have to look at the final or the more extensive, hopefully there's going to be more extensive testing and more extensive evaluation by the initial medical examiner. So then, and have the collaborative effect of looking at both autopsies, because like what they said is the most significant. Didn't they describe that as the most significant? I think one of the most significant limitations in this thing was because of they weren't able to determine the inability to directly observe the airway and lungs for water, and directly observe the stomach for gastric contents. Because what we understand is that they remove these organs for the purposes of weighing them. It's going to take that shifting is going to change and make it almost impossible for the second person to make that determination. So we're going to have to rely upon the notes of the initial medical examiner. Oftentimes, there are many medical examiners who videotape the process, and in doing so, we can make our own perceptions and look at that. But that remains to be seen. I don't know what they did in this, and that's where we're at. But you're right. That was a long-winded version of saying you're right.
No, but I thank you for the additional of breaking down the part about the organs not being in their proper places as well, because that's something that you just told me that, and it just easily, I forgot that quick that you said, because they weren't in the proper alignment. That makes things difficult as well. So the report goes on to say, lastly, in this case where a death has occurred in or around a body of water with suspicion of drowning, it is important to confirm how the person entered the water. This information is especially important for those deaths of persons who can swim, as in the case of Nolan Wells. At the time of this report, this forensic pathologist does not know the condition of Nolan Wells, i.e. conscious or unconscious, forced or unforced, before entering the water. Definitive circumstances of death are required to determine manner of death. For these reasons, this pathologist cannot rule out any intervening non-accidental factors contributed to the cause of death of Nolan Wells. So he can't say that it was not foul play. He can't say that. He can't say it wasn't murder. He can't say that it was, a drowning. He can't give you anything. So it says the following questions are still outstanding. Number one, what were the circumstances that led to Nolan Xavier Wells entering the water? Number two, what was the body's position when found? Number three, was there water in the airways? Number four, is there any evidence of injury to the anterior neck structure? Number five, is there any evidence of intraocular hemorrhaging, subdural, or I don't know how to say that word. Help me out here, Mr. Perkins. Subrachnoid?
Subrachioid, yes.
I said Mr. Perkins, and look what you subrachioid. Look at you. You did your homework. Okay.
Chat GBT. Don't.
And what was the composition of the stomach contents? What are the toxicology report findings? The best classification for the cause and manner of death for Nolan Wells is undetermined pending investigation. Okay, and then it is signed Roger A. Mitchell. So
listen. So now it's time for us to examine the press conference. The press conference.
So here's what we can do as far as breaking these things down right here. We know certain things, like we can accept, if we're going to trust how they found the body. We know what position the body was found in, if we're going to accept that. We don't know that the issue of number one is going to be significant, and that will be uncovered through continued investigation and thorough investigation of all the individuals who were present, and, you know, who will be able to know, you know, because my question is, okay, if no one knows, why would you leave this guy on the island? Why, you know, that's a question that I don't have an answer for, and I'm sure that's a question that any skilled investigator or even unskilled investigator will want to find out. But then, you know, was there water in the airway? We're going to have to rely upon the initial notes from the first medical examiner. Is there any this number 4? We're also going to have to rely upon the initial medical examiner, as well as 5 and 6. And right now we have not gotten the toxicology report findings, and I don't think those have been made available yet. So that's it.
I feel like those questions that they have at the bottom that were still left unanswered, those are the things that we as journalists, you as the public, we need to focus on when Mississippi drops their report, because those are questions that even this second pathologist has. So that's a roadmap for the things that we need to look out for in that report. I don't know why.
I got a question for you, for both of you, esteemed panelists. So the press conference, the purpose of a press conference, I thought, was to provide an update on all of the circumstances surrounding whatever said event is or was. My question is, if this report was finalized on the 19th, the press conference happened today.
Mm-hmm.
One of the outstanding questions, one of the most stunning things that transpired that we learned is that the body was shipped minus the throat, the structure of the throat.
Yeah.
And that is the beginning. If we suspect drowning as the cause of death, listen, this is what we know for a fact. If you die prior to, we suspect that body was placed on that beach because that beach was searched. The search was called off according to the Cajun Navy because there was a storm moving in, fastly moving in. There was a storm that you couldn't search through. So
well, that's not necessarily true. His body could have been in the water, and the storm could have pushed him back ashore.
Could have washed him ashore. So what I'm saying is that the throat and the structure of the throat, it provides information that go directly to cause of death, because we are saying, or we are assuming, or we are calculating, or it has been presented to us that he died based on the way we found him because of drowning, right? And we know that when you drown, and don't forget, this is not fresh water. This is salt water.
Salt water.
You know, salt water takes a toll on the human body. So what the two of the things that we look at and that we know happens when you drown is that you ingest, you take in water. So you can find water in your throat, but you can find it in your larynx area. You can find it in your throat, your voice box area. You can find it in your stomach. You can find it in your lungs, because that's how you drown. You drown because your lungs are flooded with water or some type of fluid, right? So we have nothing that tells us about whether there was water found in the lungs. And Henny pointed out what about that? About water in the lungs.
They couldn't find it. They couldn't determine whether or not there was water in his lungs because of the first autopsy.
In the secondary,
in the secondary autopsy. Let me be specific, because people will clip that, take that, run with that. In the second autopsy, the independent one, they could not determine if there was water in the lungs, the airway, or the stomach due to the first autopsy. And not only that, like Mr. Perkins said, the organs had been removed already and put back inside the cavity of the body, but not where they originally came from. So there's no way for the second autopsy to tell us what we need to know. And that's the thing that everybody was waiting on. See, here I'm gonna say this. You mentioned the going in the water. I think everyone honed in on one theory and stuck there. There's a lot of different theories that could be, in my opinion, people that should be looked at are persons of interest. And if you are Henny Gang, you know we've gone through this list of people of interest. I can't call them suspects because I don't want to. They're people of interest at this point to me as a person in the public. Warren, Wyatt, Jax. We have this guy Bart now, Trayston, Javon, the girl Katie. And then there was people camped out in the tent on the island when the father went out on the 5th with the coach at 5, 6 o'clock in the morning to go look for Nolan. There was people under a tent camping out. Then there's people, 2 boats that was tied up. Did those 2 boats belong to those people? Or did one boat belong to them and somebody else decided to stay? We don't know. But these are people of interest to me. The possibility of Nolan being murdered is definitely there. It's there. Okay. But the possibility of him drowning is there as well. Whether people want to hear that or not, the possibility is there. But the problem is we can't rule out anything. We can't rule out when he went into the water because we don't know. We don't know what day he passed. We don't know if Nolan was alive all the way until July 5th in the evening and was murdered and thrown in the water. We don't know if them people that was on the island already had him. And when the father came looking, they threw him in the water and that storm came and blew him back up. We don't know a lot of information, but we can't rule out anything. We can't rule out that he possibly drowned, especially if you do a quick Google search of Horn Island and put in there Horn Island, Northwest, Nolan Wells, put your information up in there. It will tell you about the drop-offs, the rip tides, the current and all of that stuff. And you'll see there's possibilities for everything. So for me personally, this independent autopsy did not really give us anything. That's my opinion. We didn't really get much from here. Did either of you get anything from this?
Like I said, what I get from it is that we have eyes from every corner on this case that hopefully that will pressure them into doing and going beyond, above and beyond the Call of Duty. When they fumbled the ball, that sheriff fumbled the ball, and he's, but let's hope that the medical examiner didn't fumble the ball. Let's hope that his notes will tell us something and lead us in a particular direction. Because you're right about all those things, but we're not trying. And I know you're not trying to speculate, and you're not trying to guess, but you're saying everything's still on the table because there's so much that's left unsaid. And we're leaving it on the table until we can check those boxes off and say, no, it wasn't this, it wasn't this, it wasn't that. But right now, and then when you start hearing these conflicting stories, and I was unaware about the boats being out there. I see some of the comments that some people were saying, well, why would they leave them struggling in the water? I don't know if there's been any testimony or any statements. There's been no testimony yet because it's not.
No, everybody just says I last saw him at this time. The last time I saw him was this time. So everybody has a conflicting story as to when they last saw him. And that's concerning because in the interview that Warren did with Officer Tatum, he said that they went out there with 3 boats, that Wyatt had 2 boats in the water, and that a new friend, Bart, was introduced into the story, and his boat was out there. And between the 3 boats collectively, there was about 30 kids that went out there on this water. Now, what I did not hear was that there was any adult on the boat with them. I heard, that these kids just rounded up and went out. But how does somebody who goes out to the island, and let's remember, it's not just them on the island. According to Warren, there was 1,000 people out there. How does he go out there with 30 people out of that 1,000 and nobody knows nothing, heard nothing, saw nothing? 30 friends go out and 29 come back and nobody knows what happened to Nolan?
Right.
And we're
Right.
supposed to just stomach that?
Right. Yeah.
And
No, we're
everybody
not.
has the
No,
same
no, no, no,
story.
no, no.
He said he was going to ride with another group of friends. That's everybody's story. He said he was going to ride with another group of friends. Okay, let's throw in the possibility there was other people there that they knew. We know Trayston was there. He wasn't a part of the group that went out, but Trayston was there as well. So that's another boat that's out there, somebody who knows him. How many other people out there knew him? And how many people, you mean to tell me, okay, y'all leave y'all phones on the boat, right? Because when y'all get in the water, it's waist deep. So y'all leave y'all phones on the boat. I'll give you that. But you mean to tell me nobody has no photos at all? Nobody braved that water with their phone and took photos or videos? There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. And I'm not talking about the kids that are directly involved. I'm talking about the ones who were not directly involved. I'm talking about the ones who knew him but didn't ride in with him. You mean to tell me y'all don't have no photos, no videos, no nothing? No, I'm not buying that. Somebody knows something. It's too many people, too many eyes. Somebody knows something and they're not talking. And even if it was a case of something accidental happened, because how many times have we seen something accidental happens amongst teenagers and they don't say nothing because they're scared to get in trouble? Even if that happened, you are still responsible. Even if Nolan did drown, they are still responsible. No matter what happened to Nolan, they are still responsible for him. Because if y'all left him, y'all were wrong. If something happened to him and y'all didn't say nothing, y'all are wrong. And if y'all did something to him, y'all are wrong. Either way, these kids are still in the wrong and they should not be having a comfy, cushy time, because if these were black kids that were involved, they would not be comfy, cushy. They wouldn't even be home right now. They would be sitting in county lockup as this case got sorted out. That has me furious.
Yeah. You should be. You should be. It's through our anger and through our passion and through our sheer will that we're going to get to the bottom of this. And if nothing else, we're not going to default like the sheriff did and say he drowned. Just drowned because of an inability to swim or inability to manage the water. Even though we do have some information about a lack of bruising in various different areas that they did investigate. So we can draw those conclusions and separate those things out, but we can't do it all. The toxicology is going to be a big thing. Because, right. If he's got a 0.20 or a 0.25 and he has that much alcohol in his system, that can be a contributing factor as well. I don't know that he has any alcohol. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying.
No, but you're saying the what ifs, and the possibility of him drinking is there. There's a photograph of him with a can in his hand. It's the 4th of July. He's out with his buddies. I'm quite sure he had a drink or 2 or 3 or whatever. I'm quite sure he had a sip of something, but I don't know. I don't know. This case is kind of reminiscent of the Carmelo case, where it just don't sit right in my soul. You know what I'm saying? This don't sit right in my soul, and they playing in our faces every chance they get. And what's pissing me off is that we've got to keep an eye on Mississippi. But now let me bring this up while we're here. There was 2 reports. I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Mr. Perkins, but no. 2 young ladies came out. And this is ahead of the second autopsy. 2 young ladies came out and sat there and said they know somebody who works at the morgue, and that they were told that Nolan was face down, which is a sign of disrespect, and that the Mississippi coroner's office had beat him and burned his body. There was another report of him being at a pool party, that he made it off the island, was at this pool party, and at this pool party, they beat him. They beat him bad and killed him at this party. And you've got those types of stories going viral on the internet. You've got other people reporting on those stories, fueling them, feeding the people these narratives. Now we get to the autopsy, the second autopsy, and I know Ben Crump is paying attention to everything. They did a whole dissection of this boy's body from head to toe. I need y'all to understand this. They cut that boy's body up so that they could make sure that there were no bruises and no broken fractures or anything in his body. They did that investigation and came back with nothing. So those two stories were lies. And it infuriates me because this is somebody's real life son. This is not a reality show that you're watching. This is a mother's pain, a father's pain, a family's pain. Right. And to make up stories like that. And then there's people still trying to hold on to the narratives. Listen, we have it in black and white. Stop making this story more egregious than what it already is. There's a mother watching y'all. He was not beaten. He was not burned. He was not beaten at no pool party, no nothing. His organs were there. They were not taken like Kendrick Johnson. They're there. It's his throat that's missing. So y'all that's watching this have a responsibility as people who have heard the truth, who know the truth, to make sure that the truth is outshining these salacious narratives that are being put out there.
And I'll say this much: when you say the throat in that area of the body is missing, they got to draw the attention to that area of the independent medical examiner or the independent doctor's report. It says the retention of the anterior neck structures during an initial autopsy is a common forensic pathology practice. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. So, we have to wait, and we have to, let's keep the pedal and the pressure on all these people and all these professionals who are supposed to be investigating this. And let's keep that pressure, but let's not let hysteria control the moment. Let's keep honor to this kid's life. Let's give honor to this kid's family. And, like you said, people talking about he was burned. I mean, it's a flat out lie. You know what I'm saying? But that's how things go. We understand. And they proliferate through social media. And the next thing you know, you're going to hear something about what happened on this show that didn't happen. But let's be mindful of a loss of life rather than the sensationalism of a scintillating story.
I agree.
Absolutely. So listen, this is what I need to happen, because I want to make sure that people have an opportunity to digest what we're saying.
We can't hear.
I can hear him. Mr. Perkins, you might have to go out and come back in if you can't hear Dog.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mic check.
I can hear you.
Okay, Mr. Perkins, can you hear me?
Go out.
Yeah, he's got to go out and come back in.
So what I want to do, if we can, Henny, is that I want to come back tomorrow, same time, and okay. I want to go over some of the most blaring inconsistencies and things that we find troubling, well, at the same time telling about this situation. I want to let this stand as an opening salve.
An introduction, yeah. As
an introduction to what's going on, because I don't want people, because I don't like, personally, when I have to look 3-4 hours into a stream to see something. So what I want to do, Mr. Perkins, can you hear me now?
I can.
So can you hear me? Oh, you can.
Yeah, you can.
Okay. So what I want to do is I want to bring this to a close, and I want this to serve as the opening to a conversation, because I have said things on social media, but I haven't taken to the YouTube streets yet to kind of like delve off into what's going on here. I want to bring this to a close, and I would like to come back tomorrow, same time, same place, if we can, so that we can get to some of the inconsistencies. I want to put the inconsistencies and some of the most blaring missteps as I take it. I want to put them on the screen so that we can all talk about them, so as to provide some clarity or give some additional understanding to these issues. If I can get you two wonderful people back tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'm here. Don't do me like that, Doggy. It be you. You a superstar. You ain't got time for the commoners. You a superstar now.
He'll be in Europe somewhere else.
Right.
Yeah. Hey, something. I see him coming off a plane. I don't want to talk about it. The satchel full of stuff he got it with him. and a couple $100,000 worth of jewelry. I'm like, okay, man, this is what stars do, huh?
Right, he a superstar. You know, I pick at him, but I'm proud of him. I'm very proud that you are very influential, controversial. When I grow up in these internet streets, I want to be just like you. I'm learning to not give a fuck. But now I got to learn to just say things the way I feel it and not worry about being so politically correct or whatever. Just be as controversial as I can be, because I've got a lot to say and there's a lot I don't say, trying to be polite and professional. But Doggy is showing me fuck all of that professionalism. Get down in there and give it to him.
But what I like, you have to listen to his story. Like I watch a lot of his interviews. He ain't new at this. He started.
No, he's been doing this.
Yeah, it's been 10, 15 years he's been doing it. So a lot of people who get the opportunity in a short period of time to get success, be blessed that you have that, because from going into the corporate world into the social media world, he's forcing the narrative that it be a positive one about himself. So, but here's the one thing I will take. That, these are some of I think the most glaring thing is for this sheriff to say that he drowned. That's the most glaring thing, because it sets the whole pathway into one of uncaring, lack of professionalism, lack of due diligence, and a complete lack of concern over this life. Because who's to say? Let's say the medical examiner who down in Mississippi did a great job. We don't know that yet. We haven't seen that report. At least I have not.
Right.
Let's say that other people, now that the sheriff has made that misstep, he has dispatched his deputies to go do a very intensive investigation. I would assume that, considering all of America is looking at his ass right now. So
right,
he's got to recover well. And so, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say what you just said about him putting that out there as far as it being, no foul play, a potential drowning. What you also did was you turned people off from even looking that way.
Yeah, no, and maybe he's throwing them off the scent. I mean, that's what some people want to be led to believe, is that he was thrown off the scent, and that may not be the case either, but he allowed that to happen by rushing to the judgment, and again, we can never rush to judgment.
Absolutely. Hey, dog, Miss Pammy says she want to borrow $5 from you. See, she being nice to you today.
Don't get me
started. Right above uniquely.
Don't Miss Pammy. Hold on, Miss Pam. Now, hold on. Now, you got that big house down there, and you can cook. He ain't told me you can cook. You hear me? He told me you can cook. You're gonna invite me over for dinner. You know what it is. Hey, listen. So I want to thank y'all for joining us tonight. Henny Gang, Dog Pound. We're going to come back tomorrow and we're going to go over some of the big facts and some of the common misconceptions. What happened? What Miss Pammy? What she say?
It ain't Miss Pammy. It's revisions wherever they at. Talking about Crump, and it seems like you can't read either. I read better than him though.
You talking about me? Who are you talking about? Because I'm gonna say
I don't know. Revisions, that person. I don't know where they at, but you see them in the chat in the StreamYard. They 1-2 underneath uniquely.
Oh, your mom.
We can't read. Are you serious? Because I asked for assistance on a couple of words. That's what the hell he should have been doing.
Hey, another $5 for Deontay Moore. Thank you, Deontay. I salute you. That ain't your money. It's my money. Tomorrow, that's my money. Ain't your money. I ain't sharing with you. I don't know.
You know what, Deontay Moore? Tomorrow, you better be in my chat. I expect $5 from you.
Don't be confronting my people. Hey, listen, tomorrow, 8:00, that girl Henny, attorney extraordinary Todd L. Perkins, who practices law in multiple states. If you're in trouble, if you need representation on anything from sports to whatever, you need to call Mr. Perkins. He can get you together. We'll be back tomorrow, 8 p.m. Thank you. God bless. Good night.